Right, hello. We are back, this time getting away from the Forester for a little bit. Yeah, hit a few hurdles with that, but there's a video about that. So back onto the 31, basically going to do an event in a few weeks, which is cool, but I wasn't willing to do it with the power that the car was making. Maybe I'm lazy because of what I was used to, but basically what we've got going on here is a nitrous system, as you can see. Pretty much what the thought was, sat there with Dr. Drift and weighed up the options between like pretty much turboing it and running NOS, and looked at the cost with both, as well as, you know, future what we can do. This is the most cost effective way to do it, and then there's always windows to go up. So we're, you know, the idea is to only run quite a small amount, so not push crazy numbers, but yeah, pretty much basic wet shot setup. This is a borrowed kit, which was the persuasion to enter the event, which I wasn't really that keen on, but you know, very grateful that David has lent me this. So I'll get this installed, then we'll get it tuned and see what happens. So I'm hoping that we don't have the same result of the Danger 2 manifold. Right, cool. All I've basically done there is just use taped a piece of wire to the feed line for the nitrous that's going to come from the bottle, just to get an idea of the length. By using cable, one, I can route it how I plan to route it, without, you know, running the whole line and then finding out it's too short or anything like that. So plus it should be easier to guide the actual line through as well. I've also got to do the fuel pump relay on this. It's got a bigger pump in it, it's got an 040, I'm pretty sure. Have a suss with this and see how we go. Cool, it's got the wire onto the boot, which, you know, at the same time I will actually do the fuel pump relay. You know, pretty much going to tuck it all up under the sill, mount it, get it soldered, everything. Pretty much same in the front, so run it all along and up and through one of the existing grommets. So it'll pop out here, and then, you know, this engine bay side of it, I've pretty much got my reference point for the nozzle, which is going to go there. There are some contributing factors with that as well. The hose length from the tank, I reckon, is fine after looking at it now. So, but we've only got so much room in terms of solenoids to the jet. I think it's not going to be an issue, like with where it all goes. Rightio, so I've just been reading through the manual supplied with the kit, which is definitely always good practice as well, just to see the sort of critical parts, which there are a lot when it comes to nitrous, which, you know, Doc's told me all about already, but that's where we need the jet to go, which is cool. Direction does matter, but that's the happy spot. So doing it on, I was looking at doing it on the other side, but it's just sort of impractical unless I remake the intake, which I don't want to do. But pretty much what that would do is we would have the lines run over here. Obviously this is very rough. And then what I'm thinking is off the fuel, just under here, there is a bolt that holds the steel line for the fuel rail supply, so I want to make a bracket basically off that, just with, you know, yeah, the length of the lines and everything supplied with the kit. I'm sort of trying to work around them. So what that leaves us is basically with this room in here, aftermarket reg, which is Dr. Drift, is going to go back to him, so I'm going to have factory fuel lines running in, but basically my goal is to end up with mounting points here. Right, so it's dark, it's cold, I have used up all the garage space because of the Subaru. Yep, forgot that daylight savings ends and it gets cold, so I'm just trying to chip away, trying not to blind with the head torch. But this is what we've got going on. Basically I've just sort of jimmied a bracket here temporarily because that's roughly where I want it to sit, using some pretty questionable methods. Located there with where the nozzle's meant to go into the intake. It gets the lines away from everything, and it gives us a good amount of room to run the NOS line in, and the fuel T as well. So that's going to be the go, and just need to perfect that bracket, but just going to rough everything in for now, so pretty excited. Right, managed to get some daylight, which is cool. I'm just working on a bracket for the solenoids at the moment, so just done a couple of little measurements here, drawn something out on paper, which then that'll basically bolt onto the inlet manifold, and then a separate bracket running off there that will mount the solenoids. Yeah, so do it on paper and then trace it out on some steel if I can find something that will work, and then yeah, see how we go. Right, it's getting pretty dark now, but just to show what is going on as far as the bracket goes, this is sort of what I'm trying to go for. Now I'm going to show that. Going to nut and bolt the inlet manifold where the bolt was, just to obviously make sure it's tight and it still seals, and then it holds that bracket in place. So, and then I'm going to also put a brace from here down to here, just to make sure that there's no movement in that bracket. So a bit nicer to do this with some light. Got home a bit earlier, which is cool. But yeah, so once that's done I can start mounting lines and everything. Pretty happy with where that's going to end up. Finish welding it up just that tiny bit more and should be right. With the bracket, when I need to make this extra brace, I've just put a wheel nut in there that was the perfect width. So that'll just make sure that sort of keeps its shape as far as if it was on the manifold. I'm not wheeling the welder out there to do it in place, but pretty happy with that. So yeah. Hello again. So been pretty busy today, smashing some bits out on the Skyline. A lot of it is just stuff I've been putting off. I never honestly really gave the car a good once over since I bought it. Dealt with a few problems as they arose, but then sort of decided today to do it all properly. So chucking coolant in it now. Whatever was in it was barely coolant, pretty gross looking. Got the adjustable fuel pressure reg off so I can give that back to Doc that I'd borrowed for 2 minutes. And yeah, cleaned up a bunch of the lines in the engine compartment, like coolant hoses, as well as some of the vac lines. Some of them just wrong hose, and like, yeah, just a bit messy. So tidied that up. There's still a bit more to do, but pretty much with the nitrous side of things, got our nozzle mounted into the intake, which is cool. Need to tighten that all up and everything. Cleaned up the intake pipe obviously, so I'm not just sucking plastic through, but then got the bracket done. So I reckon I overcomplicated the shite out of this bracket because that's what I do, but pretty happy. Basically it's going to sit there. The idea is it sits there, solenoids mount to that, it's clean run to the nozzle, so the lines are all happy, they're not going to protrude, rub on anything. Yeah, so that was sort of the main part. there's the wiring for the wide open switch as well. But yeah, basically making moves, but having some tidy up and yes, polishing off a few things as well. So gonna keep moving through it. Cool, so didn't bother doing that nut up with an open-ended spanner. I mean, filming it because it's not very exciting. I wish I could say the clearance was calculated by having 0.2 of a millimetre, not even that much of clearance to the nut, but it's all on there. Brackets nice and sturdy, solenoids are loose at the moment just to get the final position, but pretty happy with that. Right, so I'm sure you saw me struggling to solder those wires there. Long story short, I got one of the 12 volt super cheap soldering irons. Bought one the other day, went to use it today and the thing wouldn't turn on. Went and swapped it over for another one and the thing was just not getting hot enough. It was over 150 degrees off where it was meant to be and it wouldn't even solder some very small wire. So I've then gone back and gone with an old faithful butane one, which is just a bit annoying because I've lost a decent amount of time because of it. But yeah, anyway, just trying to race the sunlight at the moment. Hello again. So I have been doing a fair bit off camera. Camera died and then couldn't really be bothered getting it all going, but long and the short, we have got nitrous lines run, teed off fuel feed and then into the nozzle. I can't really remember the last thing I did, but on camera that is, run the nitrous line through the car, new wiring for fuel pump, so had to do a fuel pump relay on this. I knew it had a bigger pump when I bought it, you could hear it. I thought it was just standard 040 R31 things, but it's actually like a Raceworks 500, which I think is 340 litres per hour. But then basically, if you don't know, a lot of cars like this get their power from the ECU. By the time that wire gets to the fuel pump, you get a decent voltage drop, so the pump isn't working at its full potential. Being a bigger pump, even with that sort of voltage drop, it would have been able to keep up with the amount of fuel that's going to be needed for the wet shot of nitrous, but I thought I would do it properly. So had the fuel pump out, put grommets in and blah blah blah, just tried to make it nice, neat and tidy. So fuel pump relay sits here, so wire runs from the front of the car, and then basically posts on the top of the fuel pump hat that have eye terminals rather than just the factory wires. Not the funnest job, but it does make a substantial difference. So just got to tuck that away, neaten it up that little bit more. Also pulled out some of the old wiring that was in the car that was a bit questionable. As you can see, there was a lot of that going on, so it's all a bit gross. I haven't finished up completely, but just to show it running through the car, tried to make it as neat as I could. Trying to just do it nice. So runs all under here, is cable tied, it's not going to rub through. Ignore that there was a switch wired up for fans and once a kill switch, and had the battery go flat once, so I'm basically just going to rewire that to ignition, so even if I leave the switch on for the thermos, turn the car off, and then the fans will turn off. One thing that I had as well with the fuel pump is it was constantly priming, which is a sort of common thing because the main ground that runs to the fuel pump is shielded, and if you shield the outer wire as opposed to the inner, fuel pump just continuously primes. It doesn't cut off, which is obviously quite dangerous when you get to things like keys on. If you have a crash or something and fuel pump is constantly priming, it can just cause big problems. So there's a few little bits to do for the NOS now. Pretty much the wiring for the master arming switch, as well as the relays and whatnot for the solenoids, and mounting up the bracket for the wide open switch. So gonna have a suss of that now, but pretty happy with sort of the quality that I've done things. I tried to take a bit extra time and do it nicely, which now means that it's starting to get pretty close to going drifting, and still a fair bit to do, but anyway, keep at it. Hello, so it has been a minute. I've sort of been going crazy on getting the Skyline ready. It's starting to get a bit close in terms of the event and whatnot, plus enough going on outside of cars, so I'm pretty much ready for Dr. Drift to do his magic with the NOS now. Pretty much just got to mount the bottle, which I was about to get under, pull the fuel tank out, etc. And he's got some whiz bang rib nut tool, which is awesome because I don't want to drop a fuel tank and nut and bolt the clamps for the bottle because I'm lazy. So anyway, that's cool. Got the bottle filled. He filled that one for us today, which is cool. So pretty happy. I'll turn my bloody head torch on and do a run through now. I need to get this Subaru done so I don't have to work out in the dark and cold. But anyway, let's have a look-see. Fuel pump relay there. Basically I've just tied the feed line for the NOS off because obviously haven't 100% decided on the bottle location just yet, but no big drama. All run through underneath, nice and neat. Quite happy with it. I need a vacuum in here, it's all gross. Again, everything's very nicely tucked up, but yeah, also went crazy with cable ties just to make sure it's as tight as possible. And then basically we've got arming switch here, so pretty much flick that, needs ignition. It will turn the system on, so essentially activate the, how would I describe this, it'll basically allow the solenoids to open once it detects wide open from the micro switch, but that's wired to ignition power. I also did the fan wire to ignition as well, so if I turn that on now, it's not going to flatten the battery in somewhere far away from home. Not that I would have done that already. And then last but not least, so ignore the wiring. Long and short, the relay that is supplied with the kit that I've used doesn't have a mount, so I've sort of had to just keep as much length as I can, and I've just cable tied it secure enough out of the way for now, because I'm going to make a bracket for that and time is running out, so this will do for now. But yeah, lines all nice and neat. Ended up getting these AN sort of holdy things working. Had to use a bit of a hose underneath just to get it tight for the diameter, but yeah, like makes it a bit neater. Bonnet clearance is alright, but I might have to adjust it, but I can just do that in the lines. And then it is a bit questionable looking and probably not my proudest work, but also improvise, adapt, overcome. Basically mounting it underneath the accelerator pedal for wide open was an option, and then looking at basically where I could mount this switch. So basically micro switch gets activated on wide open. You know, clearance here to the bonnet's not super high, but even then there's not an awful lot I can go for. So to demonstrate, basically whap, nang 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 nang, wide open, and it hits the switch. So again, it's actually quite sturdy. It'll have no issues doing what it needs to do, plus it's, you know, fine tunable. It was just one of those things where I actually didn't really know the best way to go about it, so I just sort of sent it and welded the bracket onto a hose clamp, which, I don't know, works fine. I actually can't see it being any sort of an issue. Obviously it's going to be a bit finicky taking if I have to take the intake off, which I probably will because I've got to go to colder plugs, but even then it's, you know, small price to pay versus how much, you know, work it would be otherwise. But anyway, pretty exciting. Pretty much right to go for a tune tomorrow, which is exciting. Very curious how it's going to go. Only just learnt what people mean when they say about what shot it is, and it's all about how much horsepower. So to me, I'm like, I want to go as small as possible. I feel like the car only just needs a tiny bit to waken it up and do what it needs to do in the dry, but pretty excited. Yeah, been quite a process, took a lot longer than I sort of expected, just probably because I was trying to do it as nice and neat as possible, which I am happy with it. Obviously the wiring for the solenoids is not 100%, the wide open switch isn't 100%, but I do want to go to a window controller thing, whatever they are called, so that you can, you know, RPM activated, because there is a lot of dangers with this setup. Right, so car's pretty much good to go. I welded an alignment, ended up getting some Wanker Knuckles or Avenue service product, Instagram somewhere here, which is mad. Really appreciate Matt doing them for us. which is cool. So I've eyeballed the alignment for now. I've got to go grab some spark plugs from Repco, which will give me a chance just to get a basic sort of feel and see if I need to adjust it, and then yeah, go down to docks later and have a crack at tuning this thing, which is going to be pretty sick. So keen, very interested to see how it goes. Okay, so we are at docks. We've gone through and done a full check over, make sure there's no leaks, anything else going on, as well as put some nozzles in to suit, which are pretty much the smallest that we've got there. Got to redo my wide open switch. He's not happy with it, which is fair. It's probably too likely to fail, and it's not the sort of system that we want failing. So I'm going to make a new bracket for it basically. As earlier I did get pretty hung up on it and spent way too much time and it did my head in, but he's come up with quite a good idea to do it. And then the other part, just while we're not running the window controller fucking thing, whatever it's called, basically secondary switch. So the idea with that is that even once the other switch to arm the system is up, it's run through there in series, so have to press that button to activate it as well as a safety, because I was pretty like, oh yeah, I'll have self-control, but then Doc has a very good point that it's very easy to make a mistake and blow things up. So bottle's roughly in. Yeah, pretty keen. Hello Doc.
Happening?
What are we doing?
No laughing matter, but we're putting nitrous on the 31.
Getting some dental work.
Yep.
But yeah, so what was the drama with the switch?
Just concerned about its semi-flexible mounting.
Yep. So
yeah, we can worry about that as everything else.
Okay, right, we're on the dyno, basically all hooked up. Got a knock sensor on the back of the head there, just so Doc can hear if anything tries to blow up, detonation and whatnot. But we've still got to change the plugs and whatnot, but we're pretty much just making sure everything's working for the meantime. Right, so that run was no NOS, but I think next run we're going to squirt some gas. Gonna send it, are we?
Are you nervous, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm fucking freaking out. Was that clutch or did that make holy? Oh yeah, right. Ah.
I got your attention?
I thought the clutch slipped. But
The size one.
right, that's cool. Wheel spin, 119 kilowatt from 89. But yeah, pretty cool. Oof. Is that spin reels again? I think they add up to 70 bucks. we're running pretty much the smallest amount of nitrous that we can. Like, it's a very small amount, but yeah, car's 138 kilowatts, no detonation, and it's on the rich side, so we did change nozzles a couple of times. Stock has some extra ones around as well, so we were able to go to a smaller fuel nozzle. But yeah, pretty cool to see for really sick. Huh?
That was good enough.
Oh yeah?
I held the button down and then just ignored it.
What does that do?
It revs up quicker.
Ah. Yeah. That's mad. So, how did it go in your opinion, Snocko? What do you reckon?
Well, that's 50% gain in power.
We're shoving some gas in the intake, which is cool. But realistically, how simple it is to install, obviously there's a lot more to it, like people that know what they're doing. Yeah.
It's pretty expensive, not. But yeah. So I mean, if you look at that gain there.
Not his first rodeo.
Sorry, what am I saying? 50% gain. That's 76 to 138. That's nearly 100% gain.
Yeah. And that's a pretty small...
That's small steps for Aaron, and giant steps for Aaron Kind.
Yeah. I think I like this NOS thing. Better than taking exhaust manifolds off and turboing cars.
I think it could probably use a bigger cam or exhaust just to get the gas out. So we can getting some good gains down low. But it's tapering off up top.
Yeah.
Either that or running a progressive nitrous kit, which is where you can pulse a little bit of nitrous down low and more nitrous up top.
Yeah, right. Is that like a standard cam that is sort of built to have all of the power in the bottom of the rev range? Is that just...
Standard cam's just not meant to flow that much NA.
Yeah, right. Cam.
Yeah. Cam do.
Cam do. Sick. Alright, so we are back home now. I'm tired, it's late, it's getting on midnight, but pretty sick. Obviously I wouldn't drive this car on the road, but figuratively speaking, the NOS setup is sick. Like, it's currently got it switched, had it hooked up with that button, but basically it's cool. It's quite different, you know, like it's very on off. It's just like, it's cool. It's woken the car up heaps. It's more than enough, like I can tell already, without even drifting it yet, that it's going to be more than enough. Throttle window needs to happen, just because it's a very, very, very big protection compared to now, which relies basically on user. But yeah, like, it's cool. It's pretty sick, and how tunable it is, and you know, like Doc has it, and it's running rich on the richer side now, and like the amount of NOS that's being used is quite small as well. So obviously it's going to be learning with how much gets used, how often getting the bottle refilled, etc, etc. But cool. I'm pretty happy with the work that I've done. I'm gonna redo that wide open switch just because I'm not that happy with it, and obviously Doc raises a very good point that it is just not the greatest. It opens doors for failure, but anyway, regardless, I'm stoked, but I need to go to bed. I'm tired. I think we ended up with 139 kilowatts or something, which from 85 I think we were at last time. You know, it only needed that tiny bit more, and I do know that this will allow me to drive a lot more comfortably, a lot easier without having to slip the clutch constantly. But yeah, it'll be cool. So yeah, a few days left until drifts, so pretty keen. But regardless, thanks for watching if you made it this far anyway. A few little bits to button up in the meantime, but I think I'm gonna get back to the Subaru pretty soon, because that thing's, yeah, I want to get moving on that. So anyway, see you next time.